Hello and welcome to the Magic Mirror Podcast. I'm your host, Khan the Trinket Mage, and with me is my co-host, 33 Elk. Hi, Elk.
Hello.
So, let's just start with the main topic here. Elk, is EDH fun?
It's complicated. I definitely think that EDH, like anything else, is very fun with friends. Absolutely. But that can be said about any game. So I guess this is a roundabout way of saying, I think EDH is in a little bit of a rough spot right now. And it's for complex reasons that we'll get into. But I am curious about what your opinion is, just on the surface.
I disagree, actually. I think EDH is really fun right now. And I feel like I have a totally opposite experience from you because I don't play with a regular playgroup. I play with a lot of random people since I've moved away from all of my college friends and stuff that I used to play with. I've not played with friends regularly for a long time, actually.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's exactly where I was running into a lot of rough games, is with random people as opposed to people I'm more familiar with. I don't know if I just had an unlucky streak of randoms, but it feels like every table has their own house rules and their own band-aids to try and fix the commander problem, right? And it's at what point do we just accept that maybe these band-aids exist because the game is not the best? I definitely think Magic is a flawless game in terms of design. It's very good. It's just that once you have this many pieces, this much power, this much pushed product, you end up having to band-aid things that you don't like. And I think that is showing the weakness of Magic a little bit, where it's someone else's fun might not be your fun. And when you're playing Commander, at least, that can definitely cause a lot of issues.
That's really, all right. I'm really excited to actually dig into this topic with you. But first, we need to tell you about today's sponsor, Card Elk. They make dry erase tokens. If you use our affiliate link in the description, it supports the channel. And we think that the dry erase tokens are pretty cool. So if you want some of those, check it out. You mentioned earlier what is and isn't fun to some players. And I feel like that is a mental barrier that a lot of casual players need to get past. Because what you have to understand is every single loss for you, every single time your opponent top decks something crazy, your opponent does something wacky, your opponent wins a game, it's not a loss for everyone, right? It's a win for someone. Someone is being excited or happy about that in some capacity, usually. And I feel like a lot of people focus too much on themselves, where they're like, oh, the game didn't end the way I wanted it to with just combat damage and nothing else. This guy got his 10-card crazy combo online, and I hate combos. But for them, that's the first time they got their 10 cards in play that makes the combo. And I think being excited for your opponent is something that's difficult to do, that I think a lot of Commander players don't do.
Yeah, and I think, there's a bit of a systematic thing about this, where it's really hard to focus on what your opponents are doing. When you have three opponents, and they are all running cards that are just released, because keep in mind, we've basically doubled, if not tripled, the amount of product that we're getting per year based...
Oh, easily.
Yeah, from Magic 10 years ago. So it's it's so hard to focus on what your opponents have when there's just so much being released. And it's okay, I can focus on my synergy, what I'm doing here, stacks barring, but... But you can focus on your own little world over here. And I feel like Commanders become more solitaire over time just because of the product fatigue. And also, extending beyond that, it's the excitement for someone else's combo can only go so far. As in, sure, someone performing one of my favorite combos, Fractured Identity, 9 lives, Patrician Score, and making everyone lose the game. That's hilarious when that happens. But when you build your deck to do specifically that, and you're Mystical Tutor, Enlightened Tutor, it's the same thing every game. But even more to the point degree is I'm running Heliod Suncrowned as a commander, right? Mm-hmm. That deck's going to play the same every time. You're probably going to be walking Ballista comboing. And it's there's at a certain point where people are sitting down at a table every week and they're saying, I want to have some battle cruiser. I want to beat people with little devils, or I want to, hit you with my big 7-mana angel, and I just can't feasibly do that when you're Heliod comboing. And then what it comes to for Commander is when you're playing with random people, Commander has become a social format, a casual format, and in doing so, it's become a lot less about competition, and then you have all these differing goals of people coming to the same table. People get salty, people get mad, and it's just been so unpleasant playing Commander with randoms. When a Commander game goes well and everyone feels at equal power and it feels like a game happened, it's like 1 in 5 games for me.
Really interesting. So maybe it's because I play a lot of slow control decks that are full to the brim with interaction. I am like the table police easily. So because of that, I almost never have a game with randoms where one person gets off to an early start and steamrolls the table. Because even if it's not a combo, right? Like even if it's just like a Krenko deck that hit a Soul Ring and played Krenko, cool. I'm there with the removal for Krenko, and now he is way behind. He's back with the rest of the table, even though he had a Soul Ring opening. And I wonder if that's also part of the issue, because like I'm looking at this from my perspective, where I play super interactive decks. I don't play fast combo. I don't play like turbo aggro. It's all like goad or like Drago control or like counterspell decks. So for me, a lot of it is like I see the back and forth because I'm pushing against the archenemy every single time, and I'm pushing against whoever gets in the lead here and there, or I'm goading things towards them and stuff like that. I think it's really interesting, and we'll have to maybe come back to it or something, but I want to talk more about the increase in product, because I actually think for Commander it might be a good thing.
Yeah, when it comes to casual Commander, I feel like what you end up having is a lot of people who want different goals for the table. So like I said before, we have these rule zero conversations and stuff like that, and they touch on power. I think they should touch more on what game plan you want to have going on, not just power. Like I think they need to be more in depth for like a casual table. Now keep in mind, this doesn't count for CEDH tables, what I'm saying, because everyone has the same goal at a CEDH table, and that's like
there's no talk there. You don't need it. It's not necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, is it CEDH? We're done.
Yeah, and when I jam Vintage Cube, I could play Vintage Cube all day with random people online. I do not care, because the goal is clear. I'm trying to beat you with the cards that I drafted. And in Commander, that's where things get muddied. And that's where you start to get unhappiness, is in this obscurity of what you're trying to get out of the game. And I feel like only once you've found people that agree with what you think is fun at a casual game of Commander will you have good games of Magic for Commander.
So let me ask you then, what is an opposing goal that you see show up at your casual tables that is causing you discomfort?
Oh, okay. So easily, or rather, excuse me, I there's this person at my local game store. His name's Thomas, and I love Thomas. He's great, but he is I wouldn't say spiky, but he definitely puts a lot of combos into his deck that don't necessarily fit the theme of the deck. So like he'll run Orzhov Shadow. That's one of his decks. Or he has Magus Lucia Kane, like X spells, right? And he'll put combos in the deck that just like finish the game. And
right, so it's like Shadow Tribal, but then there's just random something in there.
Yeah, like that he runs the Heliod, Triskelion.
Ballista.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So he'll run that in the deck, or with Magus Lucia Kane, Invasion of Ikoria. X equals, whatever. You can get Deadeye Navigator and also the Drake that untaps everything, Peregrine Drake.
Right, yeah.
Because you get a copy of the Invasion of Ikoria with Magus Lucia Kane. So that's like a combo that he runs in that deck. And otherwise, it's just a bunch of Hydras. like there's these random power spikes. And so when we sit down and play, it doesn't really tilt me too bad. It's like, okay, great, let's shuffle up and play again. But I've definitely had players sit down with me and Thomas at my local game store, and the game will end like that, and then someone gets really salty about it, like, but like it'll be like turn 5 and Thomas will have comboed, and it's like, well, that wasn't very satisfying, and they can get pretty upset, how some EDH players can get. But that's my experience anyway, where it's like, ooh, it kind of causes a little bit discomfort. I don't like when people get tilted over Commander. It's just so nothing. Like, there's no entry fee at my LGS, there's no prize pool, there's no nothing. Like, we're just playing for fun. Exactly. There's no reason to get upset about it. But in the end, some people do, and that's really what drives me away from playing with randoms, is just that awkward, like, salty player feeling that some people have about the game. And once again, Commander is a social format, so that is something to factor in, that the people you're playing with can definitely factor into your experience with the game.
I mean, I totally agree with that, and there are definitely some people that I've run into at my LGS that I do not wish to play against for whatever reason, right? And of course, like, a player can totally sour it. I don't know, that's kind of interesting, because I feel like I'm so people always like call me crazy for this whenever I get comments on my like old Stacks video or even my newer Stacks video all the time, where people are like, are you not salty when somebody like blows up your lens? No, of course not. There's nothing in the game, like within the rules of the game, that like actually makes me upset. It's only things outside the game that can bother me. So of course certain players can. I guess I just don't get it. Like, I don't get what the point of getting mad over a casual Commander game gets you.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Getting upset, getting ornery, that's fine. The second you start unleashing those feelings on the people you're playing with, that's where it's really like a boundary for me, where I'm like, oh, wow, I'm really in an awkward spot here. I'm not enjoying my time, Like, totally, if you get miffed over, like, we've played for 2 hours, it's like, oh, gosh, I want the game to end, but I want to be the winner. And then, it didn't go my way. It's okay to be a little frustrated, right? You're allowed a little bit of salt, but once you dump the shaker out on the table, it's a little much,
Yeah. Oh, man, I think it's interesting that you've just had like a totally different experience to me. I find that so fascinating. I want to touch back on the increase in product. And what I think is really interesting is, in my most recent video, I was thinking about this a lot, is, looking at like, should they design cards for Commander, right? And you can point to cards like Dockside and Fierce Guardianship and these lame cards that just shouldn't have been designed. But there are so many cards printed, it's like impossible to keep track of, and very few of them are busted. And I found myself in recent years, this didn't used to be the case, but in recent years, I don't know every card at the table. And it's kind of like I've re-unlocked, like, back when I first started playing the game, and I see a card and it's new, And that didn't happen for a while once I got really into it. But now it's like, this childhood wonder has re-unlocked, where it's like, oh, I've never seen that card before. Oh, I've never seen that card before. Whoa, that was in New Capenna Precons? I've never seen that before. Do you not find that with more cards? Like, I know you said like you don't know what's going on all the time, so you play more solitaire, but do you not find yourself more interested or surprised by other people's decks now?
So everything comes with good and bad, and you'll find that there was a lot of good that comes from these Commander designs, as in, like, I love Staff of the Storyteller, for instance. That card is so much fun in Sephara. I've been playing that so much. Pest Infestation, love that card. There's a lot of cards and designs that come out in Commander products that just can't be printed into Standard, or can't be printed because Modern Horizon sets only come out so often.
Right. Anything with a goad, wrong turn, those kind of weird effects, yeah.
Yeah, but I wish that it was like more like catered towards the silly aspect of Commander and not trying to make good Commander cards. Gosh, I feel like such a jerk, because someone told me that they wish, you know what? I think it was Levin, who made the intro music for the podcast.
Oh yeah.
Levin said, I wish that Commander products really hammed up like the Mario Party aspect of Commander and not so much just being good cards. And I actually couldn't agree more. Things like
I do agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, Prisoner's Dilemma, that new card from MKM, love it. Like, that's hilarious when that resolves. And I think that that's what Commander Precon should be. They shouldn't be trying to like push the envelope of what CEDH playables are, or like anything of the sort. And I think that they should be exploring fun design space, but not necessarily good, powerful design space. And I feel like that would make a lot of Commander players really happy if that happened.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like at the very least Bloomborough was kind of a step in the right direction. I don't think any of the precon cards were like crazy strong. Like there was a Squirrel Commander, but I don't think this was like a power crept version of Chatterfang. You know, I think that it's good in a different way. It's more of an Anthem, less combo oriented.
Yeah.
More food oriented. And I think that that's, at the very least, I liked the most recent set of precons. And the Modern Horizons 3 ones, other than the Eldrazi one, was also really good, I think. It explored very unique design space. Like, Omo is a very cool commander.
Yeah, that's another thing that I run into with precons and direct-to-commander designs, is it ends up smothering niches or flooding niches. So in Modern Horizons 3, the energy deck. Energy was already a parasitic mechanic. I'm not a big fan of it. But
yeah, it was a bit of a mistake, at least in standard, yeah.
But for me, energy is like, oh, Kaladesh, oh, it's this. And then when you release an energy precon, when you release an energy theme in a set, what you're ending up doing is just like, there's no deck building involved with an energy sort of thing, because all the cards are built to work together and they don't work without each other. Not necessarily. There's a few outliers like Wrath of the Sky, right, stuff like that. But generally, you're going to run all the energy cards as a package. And this sort of package-based building has sort of been exacerbated by precons, because all of them have a theme per se, and the theme is generally very narrow. I noticed this with Murders at Karlov Manor, that the green-black theme was cards leaving the graveyard. And so it's really good for my Farrakha deck. And now the Farrakha deck just feels slightly less special, because it's just...
Where you're playing all the cards designed for that theme.
Exactly.
Right, it's no longer you brewing, it's like Wizards has been like, hey, throw these in your deck, by the way.
Yeah. I wrote a script recently, and the video will be out by the time the podcast is out, but I did a video talking about this, and direct-to-commander designs remind me a lot of that. And then you also have the forced rotation sort of deal, where it's like, why is my non-rotating format rotating? With Commander, it's a little bit more exacerbated, or maybe even a little bit less, depending on your play group. But
depending on what format you're playing, I feel like, yeah. I do agree with you that like the first time we visit a theme, it's going to be like, it's going to feel very on rails to build that deck, because you just play, because there's only like 5 good cards for the theme, so you're going to play the 5 good cards, right? It is interesting though that like, you know, so this doesn't happen as much with I guess goblin decks, right? There's so many goblin cards, so many goblin commanders that work in slightly different ways. Although Krenko is the most popular, you can build a Muxus deck and like blink it and bounce it and do other things to make Muxus work specifically. So it like reaches a point though where like, if we do this theme enough times, there's going to be so many good cards, you can't fit them all in.
Yeah, for that, I feel like you need a little bit of broadness, though. When it comes to card leaving graveyard, right, that theme from Murders at Karlov Manor, what are the payoffs that we got? We got Chalk Outline, it makes a token. We have Insidious Roots, it makes a token. Set before Lost Caverns of Ixalan, we got Skeleton Crew, it makes a token. Before that, Commander Legends, Tormod, it makes a token.
That's true.
I would like to see a little bit of variance. We also have the insect, Omzu, I think her name was, Swarm's Hunger, makes a token.
Yeah.
Like
there's the one from Karlov Manor that drains your opponent for 1.
Yeah, like Sir Conrad drains, and there's also the Soul Innervation, I believe the name was.
It's true, there's less variance there.
Yeah, and I feel like if you tackle a narrow enough theme, you're going to get that sort of problem.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get it. So what are you going to do about your Farrakha deck? Are you going to add those cards? Are you going to cut all the Karlov Manor cards to in spite of that, or are you just gonna scrap the deck?
I think overall I'm still fine with it, just because, well, one, Farrakha is kind of like my signature deck now, but also Farrakha, I just love her in general. I still love the constellation triggers off the snakes. There's still so much cool nuance with Farrakha, and honestly, activating those cards with Farrakha still feels like a little bit of a subversion. I'm not totally opposed. If we get another set and another set, like if this niche gets drowned, I could see myself moving away from these cards. Maybe they print more interesting payoffs for the niche, right? Or go about it in a different way. That might find interesting. But for now, I still love Farrakha. I enjoy playing her, so I don't think she's going to be going anywhere anytime soon.
I was wondering how I would feel if they made a commander for like baubles, because I like Town House right now as a way to double my salvaging station effects or the effects of the baubles. And I'm wondering if I would scrap the deck if they made an Is It commander that specifically worked with mana value 1 or less artifacts. I don't know if I would. Maybe I would. Maybe I would play it. I guess it depends on the commander, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, all this boils down to is the card fun, and so on and so forth. Like, I do not mind a direct to commander card so long as it's fun. And this is something I've encountered more as I've been playing other formats, and I've been sort of moving on from my like EDH baby phase, right? And it's that I really enjoy getting competitive in constructed formats and limited formats. And then once I get back to Commander, it's like I just cannot take this seriously. If I'm going to be playing Commander, I'm going to be building a deck like it's my first time playing, and I'm going to try and win with it. And that's just how I've been enjoying Commander. And no shade to CEDH, like that's awesome. I love CEDH. I love watching it. I don't know if I'd participate, at least not yet, but certainly it's a lot of fun to just sit back and like watch this stupid interaction I'm doing. Maybe this will win me the game. I hope it does. I'm going to try to win the game with it, and going from there. And then it kind of gets poo-pooed a little if someone's like a little bit stronger or whatever, but it's Commander. You can't really get too upset. And this is like once again wrapping back around to the question: is EDH fun? The answer is that EDH is what you make of it. Like, do you want to be competitive? Great, then find people who you want to be competitive with. If you want to be casual, find people who have a like-minded feeling, and then that's where you're going to find your fun, because ultimately you just can't play EDH with randoms anymore. There's just too many expectations.
Interesting. I respect your conclusion, but I have to respectfully disagree. I think that you as somebody listening, needs to build a deck that can function through disruption, that can function as a disruptive element. A deck that is not reliant on any individual thing. A deck that can interact, be flexible, be maneuverable, do different things. And if you do that, you'll have a lot more fun against any random deck. If they're the strongest deck, you use interaction on them. If you're the strongest deck and you get interacted with, that's okay. You weren't reliant on just your commander. You can keep playing the game. And I think having a, not super long, but a long, fun game of Commander where people are doing things back and forth and stuff is happening is where the game is at its best. And I think EDH is kind of at its peak right now. Casual EDH, I've never had more fun playing casual EDH than I am right now.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I do have fun playing EDH, but it's typically because I'm playing with the right people at the right power level, and I'm not getting like not force of negation. Sorry, I'm fierce guardianship, or I'm not getting this. Like, it's like there's so many card designs that I see hit the table, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be one of these games. And I agree that you should have a flexible and interactive deck, but once budget starts getting into the way a little bit, it's like, okay, great, I've shelled out some money, I got a Dawn's Truce, I got, Everyone Lives. It's like, I can't afford Teferi's Protection, I'm just going to get swept by Farewell, I guess. There's certain cards that you just cannot have an answer to, like, and on a budget, that is. And there's certain cards that are just inaccessible, or just, no matter when you see them, always create just such a bad play experience. For me, it's expropriate, right? Just having my opponents always pick time over money, for instance. Like I've had tables.
Oh man.
I've had tables where someone's put expropriate on the stack, and I've said, "All right, everyone, we gotta vote money." And someone straight up told me, "Oh, you can have your commander stolen if you want, but I'm not gonna let that happen to me." Time, and it's like, great. Well, we lose now because the Narset player is gonna flip into extra turn spells now. It's like, great. Tons of fun.
We've talked about expropriate before, and it is so funny how many people name time not realizing how like busted giving an extra turn is, you know?
Yeah, I don't understand why people think every time expropriate hits the stack, it feels like I've been teleported to a world where Time Walk is a less powerful card than Control Magic.
Yeah, exactly, right? You gotta think about it that way. Are they playing Time Walk or Control Magic? Yeah. It's pretty crazy. That's funny. So we've talked about, whether or not we think Commander is or isn't fun. And do you think that the ban list should be changed to improve that?
I think the EDH ban list is a little bit of a joke, and I think everybody agrees. It's like kind of an open secret. The RC knows that everyone's rule zeroing, like, oh, we don't want to see Rhystic Study. It's a little bit boring. We don't want to see Cyclonic Rift. It's a little bit boring. Farewell makes games take too long. Guys, let's just not play these cards. And that's what people are doing at home, right? And so the RC, I feel, is very relaxed on banning things. And they mentioned before that they have this sort of like trickle down philosophy that so long as things happening at CEDH tables aren't like going down and polluting lower power tables, then it's fine. It's so weird. And then why is Panoptic Mirror still banned? Like,
because there's a 10 mana sorcery speed combo.
I know. It's like I can just do that with Obeka and the Final Chance or whatever the instant one variant is called. It's like, come on. And so that's where I am currently with the EDH ban list. It really just doesn't matter. Like, you can't turn up with a banned card in your deck, but you can certainly walk into a table and everyone's like, well, we think these cards should be banned, so we're just not going to play against them. And if you have those in your deck, find a replacement and you can hop in this game with us, And
oh, interesting, because I've always found the opposite, that Rule Zero is very easy to opt into things and very difficult to opt out. There was a local game store I used to go to in Seattle, and they had like a thing where at the end of the week or whatever, they would like pick a player, they could ban a card or something. And one week somebody picked Soul Ring. And it became really annoying because any new person who came to the shop was like, wait, I have a Soul Ring. And it was like, oh, go grab a basic. But it was just kind of annoying. And what would happen was eventually there'd be like 4 new players that are like standing by the basic land station where you pick up basic lands to draft or whatever. And they would all just be like, should we just play a game with our Soul Rings? And they would all go, yes. And then it was just ignored completely. Whereas if you're like, I have this deck and I have one silver bordered card in it, is everybody okay with it? It's really easy for everybody to just say yes, and then you can opt into it, as opposed to then, if everybody says no, the person with the silver bordered card is just one person who has to switch, or they probably went into this knowing that they might have to switch, so they have a card prepared for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's like a really weird system to have. I'm not advocating for that
They
at all.
scrapped that system.
Oh,
They scrapped it.
sure.
It was
That
really
sounds
annoying.
awful.
Yeah, it was really funny. It was kind of funny, like when somebody said Psych Rift, and then like the one blue player would have to be like, oh darn, I gotta swap it. But then when people were just like picking like random things that people played, like some talisman, it was just weird.
You know what that's really good for is cube. Oh, there's like a sick cube concept that always floats around. Like, winner of the draft gets to make swaps out of the cube and swaps in. Love those kinds of cubes. Yeah. Those are so fun. Anyway, we're not talking about cube though. The way I see it manifested a lot is Discord friend groups. I'm in a couple, just like friends who want to play Magic together, and all these different friend groups are like, listen, if you wouldn't mind just like swapping a card out of your deck, and like this is our little like ban list of cards that we just hate playing against, stuff like that. Like, one of my friends hates like 20-minute Bolas to Citadel turns. I have to take I'd have to take Bolas the Citadel out of IRA if I want to play IRA with those people, and that's fine. I don't mind making that concession for their fun, because I want to play with my friends, and ultimately I love Bolas the Citadel. I enjoy those like funny pop off turns in my life gain deck where I can just like nuke my life total to win, but in the end my deck doesn't need that, and I don't mind playing with them, and if that makes the game more fun than for them, I don't mind. And that's sort of what I feel like most people's experiences are, is that they're playing with their friends, friend groups, kitchen table kind of thing, Discord. They're not going to local game stores, or at least, a major population, not maybe a majority, but a decent sum.
I mean, lots of people play on Discord and stuff like that. Those are very popular.
Yeah, of course. And they're doing webcam magic, or they're playing on some digital client. And those kinds of games is where I feel like that manifests the most. These sort of like rule zero, like group friend ban list things. You even see it on MTG Goldfish when they play their games of Magic together.
Right, yeah, they have their own ban list, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's more for viewership purposes. Like, no one wants to see Psych Rift for the 700th time. But, in general, I feel like some amount of it is also just like, we're tired of playing against these cards.
That's interesting. So actually, recently, I'm going to be like testing out something where I'm going to cut Soul Ring Crypt, Dockside, Rhystic Study, Bolas of Citadel, and probably Necropotence from all my decks. Just to like test it out, just to see how it happens on my end. But the funny thing is, I'm going to try this like playing at local game stores. So my opponents will have all these cards, because I'm the opposite. I actually don't do any rule zero. I minimize the amount of rule zero as much as I can. I just say, hey, don't tell me what your deck does. I don't want to know how you win. I don't want to know anything special about it. I don't care about what cards are in it. Low power, mid power, high power CEDH. Give me that answer, and I'll pick a deck.
Yeah, and that's fair.
Because I always hate it when people do. Maybe I don't know if I'm like, people in the comments let me know. I don't know if I'm the minority with this, but I really like seeing people's brews in their decks and stuff. Like, I would rather figure out if your deck is themed on a movie than have you tell me it, So when people just like try to bust out their like PowerPoint presentation to tell me, like, well, this card in my deck makes it lean towards an 8, but this card makes it lean towards... I don't need to know the individual cards. I just want to play a game of Commander, and if you have a funny card in there, I want to see it show up.
Yeah, I understand that in the sense of discovery, and I actually do value that as well. If I can trust the people I'm playing with, I would like to have that version of Commander. The problem is like, I just don't want to run into the Salt Lord, and it's like that's where the rule zero conversations come up, where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna play this deck and this is what the deck does. Like, Farrakha, I'll always mention straight up, listen, if I'm playing this deck at my best, you are not going to be able to reanimate anything, or any creature, I should say. And it's like, that's just how Farrakha works. Like, you're going to need to like lock her away behind a Drannith Magistrate before you can get something out of a graveyard. And if that's not the dynamic you want to have, then I'm fine to stash Farrakha, play a different deck. But
maybe I'm too confrontational or something, because I've definitely had times where like, dude's really salty or whatever. He's like, blah 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 blah. How could you play? What was I playing? I think I was playing Ensnaring Bridge or something. And then I'll be like, hey, are you playing artifact removal? Because if not, this is your own fault.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that most people won't say that to like a random person they just met. So maybe this is a unique situation for me.
Yeah. It's rough because I also run another deck, Sephara, like I mentioned before. And when you have a Hushbringer behind Sephara and it's indestructible, and also you have like protection spells that give hexproof, like Lauren's Escape or whatever, and it's just impossible to kill. I could see the Kyler, because like that's like the commander that comes to my mind. That's the human one. Whenever a human enters the battlefield, he gets +1/+1, and then Anthem's your team for that much as well for humans. That gets shut off by Hushbringer. You can't do anything with that deck behind a Hushbringer, and it's like, wow, I'm being really oppressive right now. And you can feel a little bit bad about that, but I mean, it ultimately, sometimes
shouldn't have built your deck where your commander's the only win condition.
Yeah, like,
oops.
Yeah, you can always say that, and it's like, Sure, that's true. But like, if someone wants to play with light pause, what's the backup to the commander?
Uh,
Like,
the core Spirit Dancer, right? The one that's +2/+2 for every aura on it,
yeah, that's
and draws a card, right?
yeah, that's fair. And you can have these backup plans, but they're always going to be more fragile. Like, especially if you just want like the classic battle cruiser, Uriel the Miststalker. I want to beat people down to like. There's only one game plan you'll have in that case. And I feel a little sympathetic, when they run into a table where it's like, yeah, we're not going to handle your Voltron nonsense. Like, here's a leadership vacuum.
Hey, leadership vacuum, great card.
Love it.
I mean, I don't know. I think I don't. I don't feel sympathetic. You're in 3 colors as Earl the Miststalker. If you can't beat an ensnaring bridge, that's your own damn fault. I don't know what to tell you. You're a Naya. Like, blow up an artifact. Not every single card has to be an aura that you slap on your commander.
Yeah, that's fair. And I feel like I agree that not enough people are running interaction, and maybe that's part of what's making them sort of like miffed at some points. Or
Yep.
But ultimately, Commander is not a format that incentivizes removal, because you have 3 opponents, and taking a 1-for-1 is just so awful in those situations.
See, I disagree. I think that removal not only is okay. So I understand the card advantage argument for removal. Yes, is true, but I genuinely think that removal makes the format so much more fun. I have a whole video planned on this, so I'm not gonna go crazy on it. Honestly, I haven't even talked about. We were just supposed to talk about the ban list. I haven't even mentioned my ideas for the ban list yet. Ours are so off topic. Okay. All right. I will make a full video about removal and why it's the best thing you could possibly play in the format and how it makes every game way more fun. And maybe that the week that video comes out, we'll talk about it on the podcast. But for the purposes of this one, I actually have some interesting changes that I would like to propose to you for the ban list.
Let's hear them.
So, this is really funny, because this was going to be my video for like last week, and then this topic kind of started blowing up when a few TOs for CEDH events started talking about this. And then now I don't want to make the video because it feels like I'm bandwagoning, but I'm not, because I had this already written out.
Horrible hipster.
I know. But I think that the ban list for casual, other than unbanning all the like garbage cards like Coalition Victory or whatever that's just like useless, like let people have fun with Coalition Victory if they want to do that win, like whatever. The ban list should be banning cards for CEDH, and I think that you don't have to make any compromises for casual play.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with you there. I feel like banning for CEDH and then just like having casual reap the rewards of that. Like, I never have to see a Fierce Guardianship again. Like, that's not a really good example, although you do see it in Rogsai, and that it's quite good there. But still, like Thassa's Oracle, things like this. I definitely think Thassa's Oracle
there's no card that is heavily played in casual that is also heavily played in competitive. Like, almost not. Like, those are totally different card pools, basically. It's very rare that there's any overlap. Like, the overlap is like Psych Rift, Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora, some of the free spells. Like, that's it. And personally, I honestly think I would really love to see CEDH banned in a way that it is not, that it's an eternal, like Legacy Eternal format that isn't as blue dominated as it is.
You just can't take the blue out of a vintage Legacy format.
You can't, because of like Force of Will and Fierce and like Pact and stuff and cheap counterspells, which is fine. But I think the problem is right now in CEDH we see, so the rock paper scissors aspect is like gone. It used to be super fast combo, and then stacks would beat super fast combo, and then control / mid range would beat stacks, and then that would lose to super fast combo, right?
Yeah.
But as we've gotten more free spells, the mid-rangey control-y decks have gotten better and better and better with more free spells, because they have Mystic Remora and Rhystic Study, easily the best cards of the format right now. as card advantage to back them up. So when you spend 2 cards to cast one of those elementals, or if you spend your early game mana casting your commander and then you Fierce Guardianship or whatever, you have more card advantage to like back that up. And it used to be that it wasn't card efficient enough to use counter magic to stop 3 players from comboing off. That's why you needed stacks, a static effect that stopped all 3 players from comboing off. Now you actually, as we've gotten more free spells, the card advantage that is really good in the format has pushed it so that you can actually just have enough counter spells to stop everybody.
Yeah, I definitely feel like free spells have warped every single format, and that includes Commander. And like, I don't know, I would love to live in a world where Rhystic Study was banned. I
think most casual players would. Like,
the thing is,
I think it would be so good for the whole format.
The Rhystic Study has its fingers in the competitive side too. It's one of the best cards in CEDH as well, with Rhystic Remora. And it's like, I don't know, I'm so tired of can you pay the 1? And it's like, blue, you're also with Thassa's Oracle, might as well splash black, and then also get that combo. I missed Flash Hulk. I think I would rather have that back, seeing games of it. Like, maybe it's just like rose tinted glasses for the past versus now.
Flash Hulk wouldn't be as bad if it wasn't for Thassa's Oracle, because before Oracle got printed, Flash Hulk you could stop with normal creature removal.
Yeah.
And the problem is you can't do that now. Oracle is such a like uniquely weird card.
Oh yeah, with this like on the stack, we already have the trigger up there. Like, you need a stifle for it. There was a while. Yeah. There was that one Aven that was being run from Amonkhet, the cycling one that stifles something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was in like tournament winning lists. Another funny thing about the people leaving mana open, or like people paying mana for Rhystic now, is you see Rhystic Tutor in decks.
What is Rhystic Tutor? I don't even think I know what this card
Rhystic
is.
Tutor I've seen in a couple of CEDH lists. It's 2 and a black for a demonic tutor, but any opponent or any player can pay 2 to counter it.
That is funny. So it's a 3-mana demonic tutor, but you can pay 2. I mean, that's the thing, is like paying 2 in CEDH is really hard.
Yeah, because you have you're under the pressure of, oh, I got to pay for Esper Sentinel, I got to pay for Rhystic Study. And so no one has mana laying around anymore. It's all free spells, and you're never going to counter a tutor.
Right, yeah, you always counter what you tutor for. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's definitely like a funny meta development. I don't think it's there to stay, but it was definitely funny to see.
Probably not.
It was very funny to see in a couple lists.
I think it'd be really cool to see CDH get like a proper look. I think it'd be awesome, because it's like, it's honestly, in paper, because it's a proxy friendly format, is like the only way we see these like legacy cards, because like otherwise legacy and vintage, it's just Magic Online. We don't really see like big paper tournaments for these events anymore.
Oh yeah, no,
I mean, we haven't in a long time.
Recently the New York so NYSE Open happened, and that tournament was up to 10 proxy. You could have 10 proxies in your deck for it, and
was it legacy?
It was vintage.
Oh.
I actually followed it very closely. Brian Koval, one of my favorite Magic players, Bosch and Roll, won the tournament, won a Black Lotus from the tournament, playing Traxa Oath of Druids. And
oh, nice.
And that was like, Black Lotus Power 9 as prize pool. Like, this is not a cheap tournament. They've been in the game for decades, the NYSE Open. And
yeah,
they allow up to 10 proxy. And it's like, Magic is a game about money, ultimately. Sadly, this hobby is very expensive. And that's where I feel like we can wrap around again to the question of, is Commander fun? It's like, yeah, if you can find people who are willing to spend as much as you, and also willing to allow proxies as much as you. And, it's all about accessibility. It's all about shaping the experience you want to have. That's just what Commander's all about right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. That's true. I want to say that's true to an extent, but it is true that budget is somewhat indicative of power. Of course, not always.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can murder a CEDH table with like a $25 deck. Like, that's one of my favorite things ever. Actually, is my LGS, just brief tangent, had a little CEDH tournament, and someone won with Rakdos, Lord of Riots. A casual deck can absolutely muck up the interactions normally seen at a CEDH table, because they're all
Yeah, you end up in these situations where it's like, I can't counter anything you do. I can't spend any removal on you because otherwise this other player is going to win with Thassa's Oracle. So then you have this stalemate where I cannot spend a counterspell on the big creature you played because I have to hold up interaction for the combo. And then you just get to attack with the big creature like 10 times,
Yeah.
and then you just kill the whole table.
Yeah, no, it's like, and also it's like, think about the counter spells that we have in CEDH. We have Fierce Guardianship, non-creature. We have Swan Song, non-creature. Well, it's enchantment, whatever it says. And we have Force of Negation, non-creature. And what happens when you play Rakdos, Lord of Riots? It's like everyone's prepared to counter an Adnaz, but they're not ready to counter your Ulamog and your Emrakul, the legal one. And just have you like turn up with Eldrazi. It's like great. And like you're also just like the lowest threat at the table. It's like, oh, this guy's playing Battlecruiser, who cares? And then you're getting beaten to death with Rakdos. It's funny.
Yeah, it is pretty funny. We're not recommending that, by the way.
Oh yeah.
This plan folds instantly as soon as there's two, Rogsai like turbo combo decks at the table, because then like one person tries to go off, they get countered, and the other one just goes off, and you don't have free interaction because you're playing a casual tank.
Yeah, exactly. No, but what I'm saying is that there's like, yeah, someone might have a CEDH deck, but your matchup just might be favorable anyway. It's really funny because you're just running the right hate piece or doing something like that. But like, yeah, of course, don't enter a tournament with that knowledge.
Okay, I think we're both in agreement about the ban list, honestly, that they should just unban some of the silly things, maybe focus a little bit more on the busted stuff, not rely so heavily on Rule Zero.
Yeah, and they should keep Golos banned. That's my hot take. I do not like Golos.
I don't care about Golos
that card's boring as hell. Deserve to get banned.
My hot take is Paradox Engine did not need to be banned.
Oh my gosh. I want to agree with you. I played Tekuthal Dice Factory, where like I'll have like a million like charge counters on Astral Cornucopia and the 4-mana like enters tapped awful charge counter rock, or like I have these rocks that exceedingly get more and more mana the more I proliferate. And that Paradox Engine would go so hard in that artifact combo deck. But I know that I would be taking 50-minute turns. Like, that needs to stay banned for everyone's good.
I think if it didn't get printed at around the same time as Thrasios, I don't think it would have been banned. Because everybody was playing, like, Thrasios plus whatever at casual tables, and Thrasios is not a great mana outlet for Paradox Engine because it doesn't cast spells or tutor or properly draw cards. It's just the scry, play a land, it's 4 mana, so it's really dirtily and it doesn't actually propel you towards a win. Whereas I feel like if people saw the card more often and it was like you didn't have an easy new commander that just got printed that lets you dirtle with it, it would have been either shorter turns because you don't have an engine to dirtle with, or faster turns because you played it with Isochron Scepter as a combo.
Yeah.
And I think people wouldn't have complained about it as much.
I don't know. It's like, I feel like Paradox Engine just inherently makes dirtle no matter what your commander is. Like, sure, you do have the faster combo, like, I have infinite mana now, and now I'm going to blast everyone with like some outlet. And
yeah, I mean, I played it in Keranos for like a long time, and like Paradox Engine meant after like Paradox Engine and 2 spells later the game ended. Like there was no dirtling, there was no fiddling around. It's just like, it's a combo piece. So here's my Paradox Engine, here's my Isochron Scepter, put the lightning bolt under it, here's the end of the game, right? That was a CEDH deck I played for a while.
Yeah.
All right, enough ban list chit chat. Are you interested in building anything new right now? Let's tie this in with some of the spoilers. Are there anything of the new spoiled cards that you're like, ooh, I want this in a deck, or I want to build this as my commander?
So recently I've been slowing down with building new decks. I just cannot build another one and actively maintain it without taking one of my previous ones apart, which I am not incentivized to do right now. But I am looking at new cards that I would want to put into something, right? So starting it off is Enduring Tenacity. That's the Snake Glimmer Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. That's just going into my IR life gain deck. You know, just death starring people with Grey Merchant of Asphodel for me. It's like, it's such a boring line, but like it's always going to be my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
Nowhere to Run was really cool. That's 1 in a black for an enchantment with flash, and when it enters, target creature and opponent controls gets -3/-3. And then creatures your opponents control can be the target of spells or abilities as if they didn't have hexproof, and ward abilities of those creatures don't trigger. So just 2 mana black kill spell, but also it just has that hate effect against hexproof and ward, which is just like, I feel like we're going to, like, I would love to kill Voha without having to worry about a ward cost or getting gotcha'd by a random ward 1 on a creature, you know, when I'm just like, once again, solitaring a little bit. Just not having to think about it would be pretty nice. There was a few other cards, but I am curious, just passing it back to you really quick to hear what you have to think so far about the spoilers.
Ooh, man, you know what's funny is I actually hate the theme. I don't like modern horror at all, but I love the designs. Like, oh my god, it's really cool. We haven't had an enchantment set in like a long time.
Wilds of Eldraine.
A demonic council. Oh, yeah, but that was like aura enchantments. That doesn't count. I mean, like real enchantments.
Yeah, that's fair.
Demonic Council, I think, is a really fun, like flavor-wise, as to what the card does. That's the 1 in a black, search for a demon, but if you have Delirium, it's Demonic Tutor. So either way, it's a Demonic Tutor. You either tutor a demon, or it is the card Demonic Tutor if you have Delirium. Like, that's such a cool callback, really interesting design. I want to play it in Modern. It seems so cool. Doomsday Executioner has me interested in some silliness in Commander, because it says when it enters the battlefield, if it was cast, each player exiles all but the bottom 6 of their library.
It just ruins the game. Like, well, not ruins,
so
but you know what I mean.
Stupid.
Like, the dynamic
is different. It speeds the game up. Yeah. I'm super interested in that. And then the Rakdos commander from the Precon, Volgavoth, the Harrower of Souls.
Yeah.
And it's got like flying, ward 2, but whenever an opponent loses life for the first time during each of their turns, put a counter on it and then draw a card. So this is like group slug, right? You play like mana barbs, you play Aether Shock. Like, oh man, this seems so fun to build. Like,
you actually get to run
group slug deck. Yeah.
Like, finally, old Mogus is like a real choice. Everyone pays the 2 life, but now it's like, oh, it's actually kind of tempting to sacrifice something so you don't draw a thing. It's kind of like the new Braids issue, where it's like you always try to sacrifice something so they don't draw 3. You know?
Yeah.
I that might actually get me to build Mogus finally. Like, I've always wanted to build Mogus, but Valgavoth is very tempting.
Built Mogus and the deck sucks because the commander is just not good enough.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because until their life total gets really low, it's like, okay, I'll take 2 damage. This is like, this is the type of like, I guess, power creep that I'm okay with when like a theme is like really useless. Like Rakdos Group Slug is just too slow these days. This like speeds it up in a little bit, but doesn't feel unfair in any way. Other than the ward 2, it doesn't like power itself. You need to actually build around it because they're not going to target it randomly.
Yeah. And also, it's just like, you can Swords to Plowshares this on your end step, and it's like, I lose life on your turn. It's not my turn. You don't draw.
Right, your opponents can play around it if they're smart, yeah. I really hope, we haven't seen it yet, but I really, really, really hope we get a red-white enchantment-oriented commander. Because we don't have one. Like, there's aura ones, but there's no Boros Enchantressy type card. And I know red isn't like huge on enchantments in the color pie, but that doesn't stop them from making like a 2-color thing that leads into 1 color.
Yeah, I'm really sad so far because it definitely looks like blue-red is going to be like the enchantment like colors that with the eerie keyword whenever you unlock a room or an enchantment enters.
Oh, is blue-red the enchantment thing colors?
It's blue-red has so far the only cards with eerie on them, which is the new mechanic that says whenever you unlock a room or whenever an enchantment enters. So it looks like they're the only ones going to get those. I hope there's a green or black one for Farrakha, because Eerie is basically Constellation in that deck.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like they're gonna do it for all the colors, right?
I,
There's like enchantment creatures in every color combo. I don't know. We'll see.
so the thing is that Wizards more than recently has been really pushing limited like two color archetypes, and there's typically not a lot of bleed out from them. At least recently, Bloomburrow's an excellent example of this. Like red black lizards, there was only 5 lizards in Bloomburrow that didn't mention an opponent losing life, and even then 2 of those made opponents lose life. And so that leaves you with 3 out of like the 15 16 lizards in the set that didn't go into the lizard gimmick. And it's like, how many non-raccoons in Bloomburrow didn't have expend? The answer is 0. There was like the team up card with the squirrel and the raccoon, but that was it.
I didn't have an answer there because I don't know. I haven't looked
The answer is 0. The expend is only on raccoon themed cards.
Interesting. Expend is a lame mechanic.
I definitely think it's a little bit uninspired, but it's definitely far from like the worst mechanics ever made.
Do things when you do things is like the most vague of abilities. It requires nothing, actually.
Yeah. Anyway, other cards I was looking at from Duskmourn that I was kind of interested in. The new Norin was kind of funny, especially with Pia Nalar, where suddenly you can just recast your creatures from exile, or your opponent just doesn't block, both of which are hilarious for you. And, if you recast your creature, you get a Thopter. And that's always pretty cute. And also it's just like red ninjutsu, kind of like, like rebuying ETBs, stuff like that. Like the new Norin's pretty cute. There was also one other card. There's Valgavoth's Lair, which is just choose a color, it taps for that color, it enters tapped, but also it's just an enchantment land with hexproof. So you don't have to just run Urza Saga if you want like a constellation trigger land anymore.
True.
The last card that really interested me personally was, and this is like a very loose interests me, Undead Sprinter. At first I was like, this card's nothing, but then someone mentioned it for my Judith deck,
yeah, it seems good in some aristocracy things,
yeah, and I was like, you know what? This is actually not bad in Judith, because in Judith you'll typically give her Death Touch, and then you pay red black, and then you sacrifice it, ping something. Oop, a creature died that wasn't a zombie now because you pinged to death something. Might as well replay the Undead Sprinter pass, and you can, you have that sack fodder. I still think it's like the 5th best of that effect, right? You have like Reassembling Skeleton, you have all those friends, even Bloodghast, just like getting it back for free. But it's still like a contender. It's not a 0.
So far, the mechanics and stuff in the set seem interesting. I like the Jolly Balloon Man. I think it's a flavorful card. It's fun. I want to put a combustible Gearhulk as a balloon.
Oh yeah, no, I'm getting like Junji Ito hanging balloons from the art. Like I really love that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize that I do definitely dislike the tech geek art from the new set, like the Ghostbuster creatures. But I feel like most of the art on the set is like, it doesn't look too out of place, most of it. Like Demonic Council, or Disturbing Mirth, or even the what's the name of the card? The Stitcher, the double red Razor Kid Needlehead or whatever. Like I'm not too put out by those cards in particular, but I have seen a couple pieces of art that definitely, like you said, you don't like. I don't jam with the theme so much, but I like a lot of the other modern horror elements that are still magic in a way, especially the Razor Kid. I'm kind of into them. They're kind of cool.
All right, so that's about all we're going to talk about for this episode. I wanted to thank everybody for listening to the first episode of our podcast. We're going to plan, assuming everything goes according to plan, to have an episode out every Tuesday. So, hit the bell, subscribe on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you're listening to this, and we'll have one up every Tuesday morning.
For you viewers, we really want to answer your questions. Any sort of questions you want to leave in sort of like a mailbag sort of fashion. This is the point in the podcast where we would definitely be doing that. Of course, episode 1 of the podcast, we have no questions, but episode 2 going on, answering, 3 or 4 questions every podcast, depending on, which ones we feel would fit the theme or just in general we find interesting. Leave your comments down below. Leave your questions, and we'd be happy to get back to them in future episodes.
Yeah, you can also tweet at us. There's going to be links to our socials in the description. You can follow us on Twitter and then tweet questions at us as well. All right, yeah. Same time next week.
Yeah, absolutely.